Hello, this is
Hello.
episode 125, and I've got two young people who have decided to get into automobile engineering. So let me introduce them one by one. Uh, Harshith is a motorsport engineering graduate from Oxford Brookes University. He's worked on body design for Daimler's trucks and buses and also as a junior technician at the Skoda service center. He likes, his passion is about detailing vehicle dynamics, CAD modeling, and performance design. And he dreams of working at Formula One day, where his love for engineering, racing, and constant innovation converge. Harshit, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, let me get Manav, who is a B.Tech in automobile engineering from Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science. He currently works at Stellantis as a change management specialist. His expertise spans across vehicle validation, BOM, release management, process and change management, parts and accessories, some of which I had to figure out this jargon. So he knows exactly what this whole thing is about. And he says that he has successfully validated and authorized over 1,000 change requests that have come to him. So we'll figure out what those things are in terms of how it works. My name is Venugopal. I run Ideascape, which is into branding and design. And we've had these sessions for the past couple of years. And one of the things that we found is that we need to talk to young people who are looking at the future and to older people who have got the experience as well. So this is going to focus on what are the opportunities that automobile engineering offers as a career. So let me start with Harshit. And what was your childhood like, Harshit? Where did you're currently in the UK, but where did you grow up and what are the things that influenced you early on?
Well, thanks for having me on the podcast, first of all. And it's a pleasure to be part of this. It'll be informative not only for, the three of us learning from each other, but also for whoever watches it, I'm sure, because there's a lot they can learn from our experience.
Great.
So, yeah, leading on from my childhood, I've been in a couple of cities through my growth. I've been in Vishakhapatnam for my schooling majorly till sixth, and then I moved to Hyderabad. They used to be in Andhra, and now Hyderabad's become part of Telangana. Did my schooling all the way to 12th grade there. And then I did my undergrad in Hindustan along with Manav. We were batchmates, and which is in Chennai. I did my automobile engineering. And after that, I took a year or two because of COVID. It was not very certain. Things were all over the place. So I was figuring out whether I want to do another course, basically my post graduation, or get some experience. And that's when my stint at Daimler came for a year. And then I moved to UK immediately for my master's, and I just finished my master's and had my graduation few weeks
Okay.
before. So yeah.
Okay. So let's get the background on Manav.
Hi, so again, yeah, like Harshit said, so thank you for having us on the podcast. It's a true honor to be here. So, so my background, I've been born and brought up in Chennai. I finished my schooling in PSBB and went on to do my B.Tech in Hindustan along with Harshit. So once we graduated, I joined a short internship at a place called Hawken Motorcycles, which was a startup. Unfortunately, the startup did not receive that funding, so we moved on. And then I joined Stellantis as a change management specialist. So people wondering what Stellantis is. Stellantis is nothing but the fourth largest automotive conglomerate. So we own brands such as Citroen, Jeep, you have Alfa Romeo, Maserati, a lot of flagship brands under the banner. So a total 14 brands. So that is where currently I'm working for the past 3 years now. So this is a little bit background on my journey.
Wonderful. So let me talk about, you've given us an overview. Now let's go a little deeper into each one of these things. So Harshit, let me start with you. How, sort of automobile engineering was a first choice, or were there some other things that you considered?
Well, I think only up to seventh grade I used to always have top three careers I always wanted to get into. It used to be leading with astronaut first. I used to want to be an astronaut first, and then I used to be a
Yeah,
racing driver second.
great.
We're not close to any of these. And the third used to be I wanted to be a chef. These were the three till seventh grade. So
Okay,
the love for Formula One got induced into me when I was in third standard, when I was in Chennai for my December vacation with my family, my extended family and cousins. So my uncle it has been always a sports freak. He'll watch any sport that is on TV at any point of time through the day when we are awake.
okay,
He'll watch any sport when he has time. So once he put out a Formula One race that was running, and all the cars were, it used to be pretty boring in terms of color schemes back in the day in Formula One. So red was the only one that used to stick out always, and the red
great.
car of Ferrari caught my eye, and I have been a Ferrari fan since forever, and I've been wanting to be in Formula One since forever as well. So when I came to
Okay,
seven, it became more of a, let's say I started growing a brain finally, thinking straight and deciding what really I want to do in life. So it felt like I wanted to be into racing more. And of course, racing, as most people know, being a racing driver from countries that are not UK basically is an extremely expensive affair. So,
yeah,
making peace with understanding how it works, being more realistic. And then I chose to be an engineer rather, and just understand how these cars work, because there's so much innovation in them that happens on a day-to-day basis. So that's about how I
okay,
got inspired into getting into F1. And I've been at it since third standard, I would say.
okay. So let me get Manav's take on this whole thing. Where did you start? What are the other things that you considered, or how have you drifted towards automobile engineering?
So I think I was influenced very early on. Like my dad is a motorhead, so naturally I think that passed on to me. And like ever since my childhood, we've been going to auto expos, car magazines, learning about stuff. Okay, this is a new launch coming. You're going for test drives here and there. So I think from a very early age, I was influenced into this. And when you're in school, you really don't know like which path you want to go down. So but I knew I want to do something related to automobiles. So I initially wanted to become a designer where you design the silhouettes, the interior, exterior, and all that stuff. And as you grow up, you realize that you have a little bit. I had a little bit more inclination towards the mechanical stuff, like saying how things actually are working on the back end of things. So that led to me taking science in 11th and 12th, and then taking down the engineering route. So I could say my inclination always towards automobiles, but it changed from design to the mechanical side of things. So that was my early on influence during my childhood. So my father was a great influencer in this.
Great. So father and uncle, they had a definite influence on the way you work things out. Now let's go a little deeper into how much did you think the course actually contributed, and while you were doing the course, were you trying to figure things out or basically having a blast?
Well, well, that's a very, very interesting question. And, there's actually a lot. We can have a whole different series of podcasts based on the whole education system that you have around. But I
Okay.
would say, like, every part of our education process, especially in undergrad, as much as when we were in the process, we used to, have a problem with the system, have a problem with the curriculum, have a problem with the professors. But after you move out of the uni, you understand that university, schooling, education itself is majorly not about passing your knowledge about what you're trying to learn. That is like more of a foundation thing, because all of that knowledge, if you think about it, is very easily available around us today. We don't have to study for it. We can learn it ourselves, or if you show some motivation or willpower to it, you can learn it by yourself, like proactiveness. I think university was more about teaching you discipline, giving you like a it's like a system that you have to learn to follow if you want to be part of a lot of companies or at a certain stream. I mean, I used to think that Formula One and people who work in Formula One just don't have a life other than that, and that's true. But it's actually available. I mean, that's the state across any stream you go to. You just have to
Okay.
work according to deadlines. When you have to deliver something, you have to work irrespective of what time it is. So it just gives you discipline, tells you where to prioritize, how to time manage. When you have so many projects to finish at the same time, you have to study for, like it's a total of about 100 modules you finish over 4 years in undergrad. It's not a joke, especially the Indian way of learning it. Indian education system puts you through its tests very well, and you learn to
Right.
talk to different people, cultures. So it basically teaches you every other soft skill rather than actual core skills. So if you
Wonderful.
learn
That's a
that
great
early
point.
on, yeah, that's something you
Yeah.
will learn more and more when you get into the university and you understand what exactly you learn. And extracurriculars, we shouldn't ever stop thinking about extracurriculars. I think he'll agree with me more on that, because of
Yeah.
that one extracurricular we had, we've learned so much that we wouldn't learn inside a classroom.
Okay. So, Manav, what is your experience of college been?
So my experience in college, like so initially, like when you go for engineering courses, like initially you have the first year of the first 2 semesters very common with all the courses that you take, whether you take aerospace, aeronautical, computer science, whatever it is. Your initial first year is just this basic of your learning your basics that you study in 11th and 12th, basic maths, basic physics, basic chemistry. And then you really get into the course material from your second year onwards, that is your third and your fourth semester, where one in one core subjects start pouring in. That's when you start learning more and more about what exactly that is happening. So, like, it's very interesting actually. So, in the third year, I think we had subjects like thermodynamics, and vehicle dynamics, and stuff like that. And that's when you start learning into what actually is the engineering behind a vehicle. So that was a very big eye opener for me. So the professors obviously are very helpful. They are very knowledgeable. You just need to know how to tap their knowledge. So when you communicate with them, I think it's not very one-on-one communicate. Like, sorry, what I mean to say is, when a classroom of like 40, 50 people, then you're communicating with the professor, that communication is going to be a little different. But to tap into the actual knowledge that your professor has, I think you need these one-on-one sessions where you can go follow up with them and talk to them, saying that okay, you taught me this. Can you explain me a little bit more? I have this doubt. So that's when you actually get to know the actual, when he explains it to you in a language you would understand, when you communicate better. So I think that is a very big, I would say, a learning point that I had, saying that we can go to these people and approach them, and they'll give you a better understanding of what you learn in the classroom. So
Great.
a very big plus point I had, that was an eye-opening thing for me, of course. And
For
of
you.
course, like
Okay.
Harshit mentioned,
Right.
extracurriculars.
So yeah, I'll get into that. But Harshit, do you remember the project which you did in your fourth year, and what did you put your mind into?
It is
So the two of us were also, so we had I think we were the only group that were allowed to have four members in it, five members in it,
five,
if I'm not wrong.
five members.
Five of us,
Okay.
yeah. You see, I've already forgotten it. But yeah, five of us did, and Manav and
Okay.
myself were in the same group for that final year project. So we can talk about it
Okay.
together almost, I think. I in fact, put in least amount of time into it compared to the four people. But I got to learn so much out of,
Okay.
because we're talking about people. One of us had the all five of us were part of that extracurricular activity as well. It was a 25-member group, which was in that part
What
of
was the
the. So it
project?
was,
What did you
Yeah,
have to
it is
do?
special.
sorry, yeah. So the project we worked in our final semester was about optimizing our Formula Student vehicle, which is something that we ourselves design, fabricate, and manufacture. And we optimize it and try to define how it can work best in terms of a setup for each and every event that takes part in a Supra or a Formula Student event. So if
Okay.
you want, we can explain what Formula Student is, because not everyone might know what it is.
Yeah,
Formula
please go
Student is
ahead.
basically what Formula One is, but
Yeah.
boiled down to more of a student level. Though I would say that innovation flies more than what Formula One is capable of in terms of innovative freedom. The right word for it would be. We just have a lot of freedom to innovate if we wish to in Formula Student, and we have a certain set of rules to follow. The car has to go through a technical inspection and pass through all of these tests and checks, whether it is according to the rule book, size wise, or performance wise, or how much horsepower it can put out, or how much, where the certain parts can be placed, restrictors to reduce difference in performance between teams, keeping them as equal as possible. So it's a huge complex set of rules that make sure it gives you a certain space and gives everybody the chance to compete, not for racing, but for design and manufacturing and passing rules, basically. He can add on
So
to that,
basically,
Formula student.
so when you go for Formula student event, they are basically, it's not like you go all out racing against each other. It is a series of smaller events inside the event. So you have like tests like acceleration, endurance, acceleration, braking, endurance. You have a skid pad. You have a what is that? You had another event where Harshit, what is the event where they have the cones where they have a mini track where you have to go through it? I forgot the name of that event.
That's called
Autocross.
auto.
Autocross.
Oh, I
So
forgot.
Autocones.
it's
Okay. You're
Auto,
you're
yeah,
weaving
sorry.
between
Time
them.
attack or autocross.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
autocross.
Okay.
So you had all these events, so where you have the chance to go one on one, and they'll rank you based on your performance. So that's how. So if you qualify for acceleration, you go to the next event, then you go to the next event, and the last event was endurance. So usually, like about 100 teams, that is 100 colleges participate all over from India, and one by one, everyone keeps going down. So few are cut off in the technical round, a few are cut off in the braking round, and then in the last, when you go for the final event, that is the endurance event, you have about like 20, 30 teams left. So
Okay.
then in that 20 teams, all the teams go together and they go across the track together at the same time. And even that is not a race. So it's just basically endurance. Like which is the car that lasts the longest? Because it's all built by us engineers. Like we're all young people who are just getting into this, learning what needs to be done. So it's
So
more of
what is
a
the
test of,
base model? What was the car that you worked with? What
no,
did you
yeah,
modify?
yeah, that's what we didn't modify anything. We built everything from the ground up,
Wow. Okay.
right from the chassis. Only thing that we got was probably the engine. So
Okay.
everything
I
else was
think
built
I
in-house.
think we have to mention what kind of car it is. I think that's the doubt.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, sir. So basically,
Okay.
so these section of cars or sect of cars are called single seater racing cars. It can only seat
Okay.
one person, the driver, and it is
Right.
built around the driver, like almost like a capsule around the driver. And
Right.
the main reason for the capsule around the driver is, there are three major reasons I think there are. First and foremost would be safety. It has to be able
Right.
to safely keep the driver around in terms of any crash. So there'll be a roll cage around above the head, which most cars have, but we don't realize it because of the body structure around it. But there is a roll cage around the passenger set of passengers, where when it rolls, it topples or whatever, it doesn't hit your head or around your body peripherals, basically. Then there
Right.
is the trying to package everything into the smallest possible, what do you call it, smallest possible package, like smallest possible area
Area that you.
can put
Okay.
all your parts into. And then there is, of course, your wheels are open wheel racing car is basically, it's not inside a arch like our road cars. It's absolutely open, naked wheels and naked suspension. You can see all of those parts outside. You can even see the engine outside. They're not covered or anything. So that's basically what it is, the single seater racing cars, open wheel racing cars, or whatever you would
So
like to
who
call it.
who is chosen to be the driver? How does that happen?
Manav
Usually,
can
like
tell you.
how we selected between us is that so weight is a very important factor. So who weighs the least, or that is usually the most important factor over here. So we are a group of 20, 30 people, and initially it's all by interest. So everyone wants to become a driver. Who doesn't? So you're building something, you want to drive it. Right? So everyone signs up for it. And then what we did is our professor took us to the local go-karting area, made us do a few laps and see who was the fastest. So the fastest five automatically were selected, saying that you guys can be the drivers. And then from that five, you again cut it down to who weighs the least, who's a little bit more athletic, who's a little bit more physically fit. And then you come down to your two or three drivers who are selected. So
Okay.
that's all.
I
Terrific.
can tell you that I
So
was the third. So I was the third driver.
no, tell me. Okay.
So how it works
You
is,
almost
in
made
Formula
it.
in Formula
Okay.
One, if you notice how it works is, there'll be two drivers per team, with a third driver who doesn't do much outside. It's only for testing, or major reason
Okay.
for someone like me to not go in was height. The taller I am,
Okay.
the more materials to make the car that much taller for
Oh, okay.
adjusting for a roll hook. So we have to, the
Okay.
height, the weight, all of these makes a huge difference. Even 1 kg can change the whole car in terms of
Okay.
characteristics.
Okay. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine that. Okay. Great. So this is the My First Joke podcast. I'm speaking to Harshith and Manav. And in the first segment, the first 20 minutes, what we've been talking about is how they got into automobile engineering, what are the kind of things that they did. And they've taken me through a very interesting session on how they built the car, how it really helped them understand the dynamics of building and learning as a group. And, I'm sure it's a wonderful experience to be able to work as a team. And like Harshit said, it's all about discipline to begin with. And how Manav said that you need one on ones with the lecturer concerned, because that is the way to tap into that knowledge. In the next segment, we'll be talking of what does it mean to move from college into a job. So I'll be talking to them about their first interview experiences, and then we will touch upon salaries and what people can expect and what is the career track. So that is in the next segment. So if you've liked this, please subscribe, share, and please ensure that more people watch this, because the idea is to get people to understand what a career in automobile engineering involves. So, Harshit, let me come to what was your first job interview like? Or you
Well,
worked
to be
in
honest,
something, or yeah, you went
yeah.
straight into a master's.
No, I worked for, so just like how Manav mentioned, which I forgot to mention, you can see what the dynamic has always been. Hawking motorcycles was actually even my first, I would say, closest to professional experience. But given the fact that
Okay,
it was more of a project under a company, which was like a future release that we were working towards,
okay,
we were just interns, though working just like how a Formula student team works. So that was
okay,
my first experience. It was very, I would say, interviews are more like the ideal way an interview works. I should reiterate, is where they just want to know you. They don't want to know your knowledge background. They just want to know a few basics that they might need for their job. And then after that, they want to know how much of intent you show, what kind. So for that role, if they need someone with leadership qualities, they're going to see in that 1 hour or 10 minutes or 15 minutes of interview time they take with you, depending on what role and company you're going to, that changes. They're looking at those skills in you in that amount of time they're talking to you, in that period of time.
okay,
So if they want someone who is, they're not really as bothered about your technical knowledge, which most fresher roles should ideally be again. And I'm using the word ideal because in reality, it doesn't always work like that. So
yeah,
ideally, they want you to be freshers. So they want you to come with some basics, and they will train you for the first 6 months or a year, and they will invest in you, get you groomed into that role that they want to put you into, or give you the skill sets to choose a role within the company after that, is what I thought and what I believe some most companies are trying. But yeah, given the what do you call it, the competition in the market now, where people come, or students come, or freshers come so much more knowledgeable than the average systems output, you realize that okay, you have to do your own homework, you have to do your own interests, like your own courses, doing extra courses and all of those. So
okay,
yeah, I would say the first interview experience was hawking motorcycles for me. But the first proper corporate interview experience was when I was trying to get into Daimler as an external employee. And it was a very different situation altogether. They wanted me to design a part, a simple part. It was a hinge on NX, which is a CAD designing software. It's made by Siemens. So they made me just design or reiterate a part which they showed to me. And they told, you can use this. These are dimensions. This is the 2D drawing sheet. You can use that and start making the part on CAD. We will give you 15 to 20 minutes. Take your time. You don't have to complete it, but we want to see how you do it. There are no rules. You have to use a certain material, nothing like that. They want to see how innovatively you are able to use the tool. or how many shortcuts you want to know, or do you know certain ways to make it faster? Because you can make the same part in 5 minutes, or you could even take a whole 1 hour if you want to make the same part. It's just the process
Okay.
and the steps you follow and where the shortcuts are. So other than that, they were happy with the way I was talking. They were happy with my my communication skills or the confidence I had. They gave me an honest review the moment I finished the interview, and at the end of the day, they gave me a review as well. So it was,
Okay.
I won't say it was too nervous or nerve wracking. It's just about till the moment they start talking to you and you get into a flow, then you'll just take it on from there, I feel.
Okay. Wonderful. So let me talk to Manav about what is it like. You can tell me either about Stellantis or any other. What is it that you got from the interview?
Yeah. So I think I think the Hawkins motorcycle was a very rough interview. Like couldn't call that much of a corporate interview. So what I would be happy to share about is my first proper interview where I had 3 rounds for the Stellantis for the job that I'm currently working on. So you're initially when you apply for the job on these portals. So I applied for the job through LinkedIn. So where you submit your resume and there's have these few basic questions like how many years of experience do you have and which college did you study in. So you fill those basic details, you submit your resume, and I think about a week later I got a phone call, and it's the HR who's saying, okay, we're interested in your profile. We'll set up a quick meeting with the hiring manager to discuss about the role. So that was my first intro into the interview, where you go in and obviously your nerves all over the place. It's like the first interview, you're nervous, you're sweating, and so I was just sitting there pacing myself, saying, "Okay, just breathe. We'll get done. We'll get done. We'll get done." So I think so. Once the interview started, the my hiring manager also was a very nice gentleman. I think in his mid 30s, 40s. And the first thing he told me is, "I know you're a fresher. I know you will be nervous. So let's just talk about general few things just to calm you down, just to get you into the mindset." And that was very
Right.
helpful actually. So like I would say like it was a god, like I don't know, divine intervention that he was taking my interview, because he calmed me down because I was really nervous, and he calmed me down. He asked me what my background is and what I studied, and then we slowly got in the technical side of things. So basically how it started is he took my resume and he asked me questions about my own resume, like in the sense he was trying to verify the details that I had put. So you're saying you were part of formula student, what did you do in that? And
Right.
I was telling what I did. And then he's asking, okay, you put that SolidWorks, can you tell me how this is done? Can you tell me this tool, how a blender is used? And then he sees another tool I can use ANSYS. So he asked, do you know meshing? So you answer that question. So one by one, you build the confidence, you build the rapport with the hiring manager. And towards the end of my first round, he was very happy with all the responses that I gave. So I think the first thing I understood is that you have to give very crisp response, crisp and confident response. So that is where the hiring manager also like, you know what, okay. And I think my next round was immediately the next day with my manager for the job. So then he again got in and he again asked me few of the same questions that was there in round one. And then he asked me a little bit more questions regarding the job role that I applied for, saying, "Have you heard about this job role? Do you know what we do?" And yeah, so you read the JD and you do know, like, okay, this is what is going to be expected of you. So you answer those basic
Right.
questions. And then comes the third round of interview where they actually try and ask you what your salary expectations are, and what are you expecting from us, what we are expecting from you, and stuff like that. So that was my third round where it went more to the HR type of discussion. So that is why they confirm whether you've gotten the job or not and stuff like that. So that was my
So
entire process.
typically, no, just to understand, so typically an entry level job would be in the region of 30 to 40, or would it be more per month? It's
So
around that.
yeah, yeah. So very frankly, when I joined about 3 years back, just COVID was just getting over. So I think that time I landed around 35,000. So that is where I think you can expect a rough fresher salary in the field.
And okay, I'll also go to Harshit on this and then come back to you because
Yeah.
so Harshit, you decided that you wanted to do your master's. So what were your career objectives and goals at that point? And please touch upon salaries as well, because I think that's an important part too, for people to understand what is it that they get when they join and how does the salary level improve as they move ahead.
Okay, so well, like I said, so because I had only 2 years after my undergrad before I did my master's, and I master's was always going to be my next step. It was just about the time, because during COVID was not really the right time to come, because we were doing online classes even if we came to UK at that time. People were
Right.
still doing online classes, and it didn't make sense because I wouldn't be using the facilities. I wouldn't have access to all of those. So it wasn't the right time to come for my master's. So I thought I'd take on some profession, and if I get a job at that time. So as you already saw, the interviewing process was very, very different for himself and me. Salaries were
Yeah.
also equally different. I was not working directly in Daimler. So I was working as an external employee in Daimler. So this is because I am coming from a third party client. So Daimler is our client,
Okay.
Mercedes is our client, and then we get placed in the company and we work there till whenever the contract is or whenever the project needs us.
Right.
We don't have,
Right.
at least in my company, we did not, as in the company I was working in, we did not get the clarity on those things. We were just told when there's a project, told when the interview was ready, give one round of interview, and maximum two if there's like a clash between a couple of people, and then yeah, they just finish it. So salaries were also very differently processed, because now Daimler is not paying me directly for my services, they're paying a company for me. So the salary just
Right.
boils down in the middle, the middleman basically. I was getting the basic pay that was at that time 15,000, I think, which is much, much below what you would consider,
Right.
good in a metro city. But I would say the experience I got just because of the company who was our
Exactly.
client, which is Daimler, was
Exactly. That's
extremely
the very, really
useful.
important part.
But
Yeah.
yes, but I think people have to be practical sometimes. You do need some survival at the end of the day. If you have a good financial backing, then yes. So my dad was able to help me out and be like, okay, you know what? This is the time for you to explore. You're not trying to start your career yet. You're going to study anyway. It's just a matter of when you're going. So you go get the experience. And so with financial support from family and with the money I was getting, then I was able to just learn. But yeah,
Okay.
salary is not ideal when you're living in a metro city like Bangalore, where I was working for 1 year. But the
So,
experience I
what
got was vast.
went in your mind for doing your masters? How did you decide on that? What were the kind of things that you kept in mind?
Okay, so masters was simple. I wanted to go to the UK only for one. I mean, come to the UK only for one reason, and that's because Formula One and all the Formula One teams, if not 8 or 7 of them, are based inside the UK. So your best
Okay.
chance at getting a Formula One job is inside the UK, especially as a graduate or as a fresher. If you want to, eventually get into Formula One later on in your life as an experienced professional, then yes, you can get into almost any profession and still get into Formula One as a chef, as someone in IT, as someone in logistics, as someone in HR, supply chain. You can get into almost any field and get into Formula One, because all these teams help run a Formula One sport altogether. So, which I was not really, I won't say I wasn't aware of, but I never really thought of it seriously as other career options. I only thought of engineering. I don't regret it, by the way. I'm just telling, I enjoy it. So, yeah, I would say masters was very clear. UK was the first choice of country. And then there were top 3 colleges I wanted. And that was from connecting with a lot of engineers in Formula One teams at that time in my second year, third year. Through LinkedIn, I connected with them, had a conversation, told them this is what I'm doing right now. I would like to get into Formula One eventually one day. Can you give me some ideas on how I can? First of all, the visa situation. How do you come and get a visa to work in UK? So they told you have to first be a student. So come and study, do a master's. You will get some exposure on how it works over here, some knowledge on this field itself, and then you can apply to companies. So that was their suggestion. Oxford Brookes University was one of the top suggestions they gave for Formula One. So to get into Formula One, I mean. So that's what my natural progression was. The timing was just about just understanding when is the best time to go. Let COVID pass so that you can experience the university's facilities as well. So it's just about a matter of time. These things were sorted out in in my planning by the end of second or third year itself in undergrad. And then it was about a matter of time till COVID ended and things went back to normal about when to go to masters.
Okay. So how has the course been so far? What have you been doing at your master's course?
Well, my master's was done, as in the final submission of my dissertation was done in September
Oh, yeah,
2024
you told me
itself.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so I'm graduated. I had, like I said, I had my graduation a few days before our podcast.
Okay.
So the course over here is, first of all, vastly advanced. You learn a lot more technical related. Your education on technical knowledge is a lot more higher. The number of softwares you learn, it's more updated, I would say. We learned almost 7 different softwares just in the span of 11 months, which are master's courses in
Okay.
UK. Whereas over 4 years in undergrad, I learned hardly 2 softwares, and most of it was based on what we did in our formula student team, or our projects needed that knowledge ourselves. So that was one. The softwares we learned were in uni were a little more outdated, I would say. Whereas this in undergrad, I mean, and in postgrad, the softwares I learned are literally what Formula One teams are using right now, and you wouldn't be able to access these being individuals or independent students or even freelance people. It is very tough to gain access to some of these softwares because they are made only for access for some race teams and stuff like that. So through uni, we get that access because for educational purposes, they can get the licenses much more easily than us. So
Okay.
yeah, the course I would say was about that, about time management, because we would have 4 different submissions in 1 week. And it is all 2000 words, 5000 word submissions, and you have to put in a lot of work in the software. And the write-up is not the problem. It's about getting the work in the software. You're experimenting, designing, crash testing, and all of these on
Give
softwares
me
now rather
a
than real life.
give me a quick this thing about one particular assignment which you remember.
Well, my favorite assignments over here were in aerodynamics because I enjoy how you can manipulate how the air goes around a car when you're traveling, and you just get different types of performance from the car. And to see how it works, more than interest in the subject itself, the interest in how to manipulate the software and get the right results, and getting the results you need rather than getting the wrong results, which is something you can easily get fooled by, given how we use our mobiles and other softwares around us, where you put in and it surely gives you the right answer. That's not how it is with most engineering softwares. You need to know what parameters to put in. So one such understanding or eye-opening to the software usage was my first assignment. There are multiple templates of cars that you get in road cars itself. So there's something called an MIRA template. These were one of the first templates that were used for, like the base model from where you start sculpting the car into what you want it to do, for designers who make cars and all of these road car companies. So these cars have certain setups. They have a fastback setup, which is nothing but a car that is not a sedan, but not a hatchback as well. Then you have a sedan, which is a long body. Then you have a notch, which is basically your hatchback cars, basically cut off at the back. So you have 3 templates. Every time you put it onto the software, you're putting it into a virtual wind tunnel, and then you're running it through a certain wind speed across the car. You're telling how big the wind tunnel is. You tell what material, what is the friction across the what do you call it, the surfaces which are available in the wind tunnel, your vehicle, your wind tunnel itself, and all of those. If the ground is moving or not, basically simulating a road. So you can put so many parameters into it. You have to tell certain things called, there's too much technical stuff like what is it called, blockage ratio. Then there is something called what do you call it, the I forgot what that is, sorry, the tunnel
Okay.
effect basically.
But
But
I
all of
think
these
you've
technical
given
knowledge,
this here. Okay.
yeah, all
Okay.
of these one by one, when I started seeing how you can get these results out, we were just supposed to tell the difference between those 3 templates, how they work at the back end, how the downforce works, what is the way the air flows, what kind of vortices are formed. So we're just giving reports on it. So that gave me so much insight into aerodynamics than what I've been learning till now, or trying to understand from internet
Okay.
articles till now.
Okay. Great. So this is the My First Job podcast. I've been speaking to Harshith and Manav, and they gave me a wonderful explanation of how their first interviews went, what were the considerations. Manav spoke about going through a three-stage process. Harshit spoke about working for a subsidiary or a contract manufacturer who was doing work for Daimler, but then he decided to take that drop because it meant that he would be focusing on the future. And uh, he gave us a wonderful impression of what it means to do your masters and why he chose the UK, because he was so clear about what he wanted to do. I like the fact that he reached out on LinkedIn and made his connections in advance rather than simply trying to understand what this whole thing was about. Now, in the final segment, I'll be speaking to both about what is it like to do their job and what is it that Harshit is going to begin looking for to begin with. And I'll speak to Manav about what the job currently is, and I'll try and understand that a little more because he's given me this how he managed various changes. So change management, what exactly happens. So let's move to the next stage. If you like this, subscribe, share, and let your friends know, because the idea is to get you to understand what it means to do a career and not just about a course, because everyone can get a degree, but how do you move ahead is what is important. So Manav, what exactly does Stellantis do, and how do you said 14 brands or 14
Yeah.
companies. So how exactly is this whole thing managed? What does your company do? And what is your role?
Okay. So whenever I tell people I work for Stellantis, people usually think it's a big IT company, but it's not. So Stellantis was formed between two different mergers. So one, we had your European company where you have Peugeot, Citroen, and you had DS, and they merged with an Italian-American company called FCA Automobiles. That is your Fiat Chrysler Automobiles. So both these companies merged together in 2021 to form Stellantis. So what Stellantis basically is just it's a conglomerate of different brands. So you have a few North America mainstream brands, you have European brands, you have Italian brands, where they all. So basically, auto developing an automobile is a very expensive thing. So what a final result you see is about a decade worth of engineering effort from different teams, from suppliers, from engineering teams. That is a culmination of their work, and then you get to drive that vehicle. So it is a decade worth of manpower that goes into it. So it's very expensive. So what happens is many of these brands collaborate with each other to develop, a base model, you could say, a base chassis, and then each brand then has their own spin on it. Okay, like for example, at Stellantis, we have two different brands. One is Alfa Romeo and one is Dodge. Alfa Romeo is an Italian heritage brand. It's one of the oldest automobile brands in the world. And then we have a Dodge, which is an American performance brand. So both these brands have a similar vehicle called a similar base vehicle where you have the Dodge Hornet and you have the Alfa Romeo Tonale. So both are the same vehicles, but each brand has its own different spin on it. Whereas you have Alfa Romeo side, you have Italian design, Italian flair. Whereas on the Dodge, you have this American horsepower, you have American flashy colors, and so that's like that. So Stellantis is basically a merger of different brands put together so that each brand can benefit of each other. So that is
Right.
how the merger came into play. And what I do is, so basically all of us work for all the brands. We don't work individually on each brand. So everyone is working on all different brands, all different models. So my job as change management specialist is basically I'm working on all the brands, and I primarily am focusing on the North America brands. That is Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, and a few brands in the India market, that is Citroen and Jeep. So what my job entitles is basically you have made a design, and that design is being manufactured by a supplier, and that is going into the vehicle. So during any of these processes, if there is a change, that is, for example, you are manufacturing a plastic part. Let's say you are manufacturing a plastic bolt, a plastic bolt, and the supplier comes to us and tells that, I'm changing the material. Under plastic you have different grades, so I'm changing the grade. Is that okay with you? So they'll submit a formal request with us, and us engineers, we have to validate whether that change will not have any repercussions, will not change the way the bolt actually works, whether it's the strength is similar, whether the endurance, durability will be the same or not. And then you also have to think whether the cost is increasing, decreasing, what is the supply chain effects on it, and you take into effect all those different variables, and then you go ahead, you document the change, you have a traceability, and then you go ahead and tell the supplier, what, I approve this material change or I disapprove this material change for this and this reason. So that is what basically my role entitles. Very briefly explaining, I would say.
No, it's a wonderful drill down as to how much goes into the making of a car. Like you said, there is this whole ecosystem which is created, and people just assume that one designer somewhere did, and then you break it down into 3,000 or 4,000 parts, and they all have to come together. And they have to come together in factories across the world. So there's a whole world of engineering that has to happen. Now, I read, in fact, recently I just listened to this in a podcast which said that, BASF, that is, apparently a majority of cars are in black or white, are among the most dominant colors. But it also said that practically every car in the world will have one coat of paint from BASF. And they said
Yep.
anywhere from 6 to 7 years if you want one of the unusual colors to come in. So there's a company which is specialized only in color for automobiles and paint, because then it depends on how do you get that color, how is it processed, what happens in the factory, all of those things. So I think the amount of things that people can learn if they get into, they think automobile engineering somehow you think is just a car, but then like you mentioned, there are
No,
14
absolutely not.
vehicles, and then you're
Very,
just
very
expanding
different.
across that entire
Like
range of things.
like how you
Yeah,
mentioned, like paint as an example, like like you, even if you take paint as an example, you can take any
yeah,
commodity, and every company will have their own validation on it. Like you are going
right,
to be selling this vehicle to the masses, to people all over the world in all different regions, different weather conditions, different people driving it. So you have to, as an engineer, when you're developing this, you have to take that into consideration and develop a product that is going to be commonized for all these different variables. Because you cannot go
right,
ahead and develop a part for India alone or for America alone. No, you don't want that. Cost will go somewhere. So you want to commonize the part. For example, here even the paint, you want to commonize the paint for all different weather conditions. Like in America, it
right.
snows, but in India, there is the hot sun throughout the 10 months. So you need a paint which works for both. So you have extensive validation, extensive cost that goes into it. So a small change also can trigger even years worth of validation for it to come to market. So
Okay.
it's a Herculean effort. I could definitely say that.
Yeah, it's a wonderful explanation of how complex it is. Harshit, what is the first thing that you're planning to do? How are you planning your career from here on? What is it that you're looking at?
Well, I do have few routes I can take into consider, which I have taken into consideration. So, for example, like I said, Formula One, though it is ambitious, it is tough to get into because the number of jobs you have are only across 10 teams. And it is very ambitious to start at Formula One. And I tried to attempt that. At the moment, it is still on the process, but I would say it's not 100% a success. It's never going to be a 100% success story.
Yeah,
So
that
one route is if you go and apply for graduate roles in Formula One itself, in among the teams in Formula One, their career website, straightforward. No need to go through LinkedIn or anything. Even if you go through other
close.
websites, it will take you to the same website. Your Formula One team's website, careers page, you get all the jobs available. So that was my first option, still is my first option. Once that does not work out or does work out, the next step will accordingly change. So if it doesn't work out, then I will try to get into automobile companies. Like instead of getting into pinnacle of motorsport, it'll either be through some of the lower echelons of motorsport like F2, F3, or other kinds of racing like GT racing and endurance racing and other like I said, other sects of racing inside this country. Then the next step would be any automobile companies I can work in. So those applications also. So right now my life is just just between CVs, resumes, applications, and job descriptions. Just applying left, right,
Right.
and center. Thousands of applications
Right.
going through every month. So that's how it goes
Right.
right now. Um, if not automobile companies, I can always diversify. So it's about how I prioritize diversification and what my timeline is for myself. So I can choose when I don't want to keep putting my efforts all into this, get a little practical, gain more valid exposure in any other field. It doesn't matter, because any skill is considered as transferable skills. So gain that skill set and then start moving towards Formula One eventually.
Okay. Okay. No, I think that's a very valid way of looking at it. And what I like about it is how you've listed the entire thing, saying that, okay, you can go to the Formula One website, you can look at what is available out there. And then there's Formula 2, 3, and 4, which is itself. And the whole point is the number of jobs just keep increasing as you go further down the line, because it could be focused on just one thing there. Like you said, it's for endurance, or it's in a certain geography, or things like that. One of my early podcasts, I had Shreya Lohia, who is one of the youngest Indian female drivers in F4. So she is now attempting to move because, again, like you said, it's a very expensive sport. And she's trying to see how she can move from Formula 4 to 3 to 2 to 1. And but she's going at it from a driver, because, from and obviously you have just about 10 or 20 positions available across the world. But okay, so you guys have got, I think, the unusual. One of you is looking at Formula One, the other is looking at this whole ecosystem, supply chain that is coming together. But if you had to tell people who are just graduating, who didn't have direction like you did, what is it that they should be focusing on, and what are the things that will help them land their first job? For example, I think pay attention to your project. Like Manav said in his interview, when you put it on a resume, be very clear that you have actually done that project and you can speak with authority on it. So I'd like your take on, what do you think that people who are coming out today should do? So, Manav?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, so it is especially in automobile, you can go through. You have various options. You can go to the powertrain side of it. You can go through the interior side of it. You can go to the body side of it. You can even go to the mechanical side of it, where you have other moving parts. You have the braking system, exhaust. You have a lot of options. So I think the first thing that needs to be done is that you need to, at least have a top five list of, this is my number one priority. And in automobile, okay, I want to get into powertrain. If not powertrain, then you have braking. If not braking, then I have body. So at least when you're in college and you're undergraduate, you can have a list of your top five commodities that you would want to enter, and based on which is your interest leaning towards, that is where you can take your final year project towards. So for example, if you want to go into the powertrain side of it, you can take your final year project on the powertrain side of it and use that to amplify and build skills that are required in the job, in the real world job. So that you can put in a resume saying that in my final year project, I have, I don't have the exact experience, but I do have similar experience where I developed a similar type of powertrain for a different project or something, whatever it is. So that
Okay.
shows the company that you're applying for, that okay, he is inclined towards this, and he's shown interest towards it in that by, even having a project or two on it, by writing a paper or two on it. So that shows that you have showing intent, and and you have the skills along to go with it as well.
Great. Intent and skill, very valid observation. So, Harshit, what would you suggest for somebody who's just starting out and wants to look at wants to stay in automobile engineering, but is not very clear about what do they want to do?
I think Manav put it down very clearly. That's very well put down, very clear as to what you can think about first. But I would add on only one thing to it. The best way to know what you're interested in is only if you go and explore and get your hands dirty. So that doesn't, I'm talking about it figuratively and literally. So I feel, for me personally, I love to work on a car properly, physically, getting my hands dirty, or learning it. I'm not someone who's greatly knowledgeable, but because of whatever I've learned is only because I went and worked on something physically, and then I was able to get interest out of it. So that would be the first thing. But figuratively, if you ask me, it's about going and reading about it. Like, it could be watching videos, it could be reading books, or it could be just going through papers. If you're someone who has an academic mind, who loves to read academic papers, if you just, like, let's say, like he said, now if you know what you're interested in, it's to act on one of these. So you have to go and start exploring it as much, even if it means working on it, which formula student in most unis in India also are coming up with a lot of teams. It is pretty famous across any part of the world, these teams, having teams in a university. So the best thing you can do is to go and apply and get into the team, or go become a part of the team, find a way to get into the team. Then you start working on a particular sector. You work in brakes, you work in cooling, you work in powertrain, you work in driver environment, you work in suspension. So automatically you have to know how to design the part. So you start learning it. In that process, you will realize whether you're interested in it or not. And since it's all students, it's always easy to talk to each other. It's just a namesake you're being segregated, because you indirectly start helping each other. You get involved in that. Just because you're in suspension doesn't mean you don't talk to people in braking at all. You go and you see what they're doing, you help them, so you
Yeah,
yourself will learn. You might mid-season swap
yeah.
because you're interested in that and he or she is interested in this, maybe. So you just swap in teams and contribute for the work to get done, but eventually you learn it and learn your interests as well in that process. So that's what I would add on
Great.
to what Manav said.
Wonderful. It's been marvelous speaking to you both. I think you were frank. You were very clear about what you wanted to talk about. And I think anyone who's watching this episode will definitely get an idea of what it means to be pursuing a career in automobile engineering. And let me wish both of you the very best for the future. Okay.
Thank
I'll
you.
just ask you to hang on for a couple of minutes after I close out, but here's wishing you the very best.
Thank you.
So if
Thank you
you
very
want
much. Pleasure being here.
Thank you so
to, thank
much.
you guys. Okay. So this, I'd just like to, yeah. So that was my conversation with Harshith and Manav. And I think they gave a wonderful rendition of what it means to pursue a career in the automobile business. And for anyone who's looking at what does it involve, I think they were very clear. And next week, we'll be back with another guest, another profession, another career. Until then, keep watching My First Job.